Growing up, I was often described as kind, quirky, outgoing, helpful. Intelligent? That is not a term often used to describe someone who is simply kind, knows how to lighten a mood, relates well with others, someone who can empathize. These are qualities I've been told I have, but especially in an academic setting, they are not often associated with intelligence. Intelligence suggests its own categories. It's getting an A+ and nothing less. It's making the dean's list every semester. It's being able to express yourself and articulate exactly what you want to say and have people understand you without circling back to clarify. This way of viewing intelligence works for some. Those who are able to look at a multiple choice exam and identify with ease that, yes, D is more correct than A or B or C. But what about those of us who don't fit this mold, who see the value in B as well as D? I celebrate an A- and don't find undue disappointment in getting a B. I sometimes find it difficult to articulate myself and what I want to say. I know what I want to say in my head, but when I speak the words aloud, I worry I'm not being understood and may try to compensate by talking more. Already in first grade, I felt that pressure to get the words right. One week at Waterford Elementary School, our teacher told us she was going to give us an extra challenging word on our spelling test. She said everyone who spelled the word gingerbread correctly would find a gingerbread cookie in their mailbox at the end of that day. Of course, anyone would want to find a sweet surprise in their cubby, but even more than that, I was afraid of how it would look if everyone in my class received a cookie and I did not. Would my classmates think I was dumb? Would my teacher still like me? My first grade brain came up with a solution to this dilemma. I thought, if I could have the word written on a slip of paper, then when I went to take the test, there would be no risk in disappointing the important people in my life. You might guess what happened. Sitting there, taking my quiz paper out, I didn't get farther than G-I-N-G before my teacher grabbed my wrist, took me into the classroom and scolded me for what I did. I felt ashamed and confused. My goal had been to impress my teacher and peers, but the way I went about it led to the opposite outcome. As I reflect on this story, I think I'm not alone. Many of us are afraid to be seen as less than when we are called on to do something that doesn't come as easily. In school settings, from elementary all the way through college and beyond, we elevate a few and marginalize the rest. Think of the honor roll or the dean's list. Are they supposed to be rewards, motivators to excel? Perhaps. But from my perspective, they end up serving as yet another reminder to many of us that we're not quite there. We're not quite making the grade. Measuring success in our society is complex and full of risk. In school systems, we are eager to separate and divide people. Winners and losers, gifted and ordinary, fast learners and slow learners, those who read early and those who read late, those who receive cookies and those who do not. For example, at Cherna Elementary, where I'm completing my year-long social work internship, they have a program called High Ability, where a small percentage of 4th and 5th grade students from all of the elementary schools combined get accepted into a classroom based on their academic achievement. It's almost completely based on their academic achievement, and these students are told they have the highest IQs. They're told if their scores are high enough, they will advance to the next level, like a video game. It's good to be challenged and recognized, but that separation sends both groups the message that they are different from one another, furthering the divide. Back when I was in elementary school, the program was called Gifted and Talented. Well, the name has changed. The messages sent to those in and out of the program remain the same. These are the gifted and talented kids. And if you're not in that cohort, you're okay, you're fine, but not special. The program sends a message: who is better? Who is smarter? We do this in elementary school, we do this in middle school, we do this in high school, we do this here at Goshen College. My first point is we are in a rush to measure students and predict who is going to succeed. My second point, we're often wrong. In the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell refers to the psychologist Lewis Terman, who studied school children in California in the 1920s. He identified children whose IQ averaged more than 140, followed their careers and achievements, sure that they would become world-famous policymakers, artists, scientists, and Nobel Prize winners. Terman's views are reflected in educational policy today. Children in grades 3 through 8 take the ISTEP test in English, language arts, and mathematics every spring. If they don't pass, they're at risk of being held back. There are many other tests to look forward to. There's the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, the LSAT, the GMAT, and those are just to name a few. We correlate these high scores on tests with success. But Gladwell reminds us that high test scores are incomplete predictors of success. The majority of children from his study had what society would consider to be ordinary careers. The odds of predicting extraordinary careers could have been managed just as easily by flipping a coin. IQ tests known as convergence testing focus on picking the best answer out of a set of options. However, Gladwell points to another way of predicting success in the real world. It's called divergence testing, which requires imagination. Students are asked, for example, to list as many uses as they can for a blanket. A blanket can cover a bed. A blanket can also be used to make a fort with 2 chairs. A student who is good at convergence might be able to quickly memorize a formula. A student who is good at the divergence test has a mind that leaps from one possibility to another, making connections. Gladwell asked this question: which one of these 2 students might do the imaginative work that would win a Nobel Prize? Suddenly, it's not so clear. In my third and final point, I want to emphasize the steps we can take to maximize learning and opportunities that bring out the best in people. For example, in the book Whistling Vivaldi, the social psychologist Claude Steele describes both the threat of stereotypes and the power of an uplifting narrative. When they face negative stereotypes, female math majors do worse on tests. If students of color are only given texts by white authors about white characters, they may question whether they belong in that school setting. Stereotypes about age, gender, sexual orientation, and race can undermine our performance in many areas. But he goes on to describe ways to push back against stereotypes. For example, first-generation students at Goshen College might be filled with doubt about whether they are really college material. Hearing stories of other first-generation students who have come to Goshen and have been successful can help them to believe in themselves. Additionally, some people with learning impediments, which are often undiagnosed, will flourish in their own time, especially with encouragement. In 5th grade, Trisha's teacher, Mr. Fokker, asked her to read aloud from Charlotte's Web. She began to stumble and her classmates laughed. He said, "Stop. Are all of you so perfect that you can look at another person and find fault with her?" Mr. Fokker and Trisha worked together for months on letters and words until one day he put a book in front of her and asked her to read. Almost as if light had poured into her brain, the words started to take shape on the page as they never had before. Slowly, she read a sentence, and then another, and finally she read a paragraph, and she understood the whole thing. She didn't notice that Mr. Fokker had tears in his eyes. That little girl was the New York Times best-selling author, Patricia Polacco. I had my own struggles with reading as a child. I compensated to the point where I generally do fine in classes, but when I'd go to take a test, I wouldn't always do as well, making it look like I wasn't trying. It wasn't until my sophomore year of college that I was diagnosed with a reading impairment and completed a 1.5 years of vision therapy. This helped my eyes to begin working better together as a team, increasing my ability to track words on a page and better understand what I was reading. Vision in therapy empowered me to articulate these feelings, giving me an increased understanding and empathy for those who share similar struggles. This speech is not a call for lowering standards or encouraging any of us to settle for less. Grades and the Dean's List and challenging tests can serve as important motivators and measures. But to stop there makes measuring success and intelligence incomplete. How can we enable everyone to flourish? Our calling should be to seek out the talent and intelligence in each person, recognizing that everyone has their own story and challenges. In a society so quick to judge, we need to honor each individual as unique and worthy. As my supervisor tells the students at Chandler Elementary, it doesn't matter if you've won or lost the cookie jar game. Everyone deserves a piece of chocolate, even if the winner gets two.